Eleanor Vance had everything money could buy: a $1 billion empire, a penthouse in the clouds, and a life most people could only dream of. But wealth couldn't cure the suffocating loneliness that drove her to flee a boardroom in the middle of a panic attack, stepping into the rain-soaked streets where she'd follow a stranger's joyful laugh straight into a world she'd never known. That stranger was Marcus Thorne, a janitor who mopped the floors of her own building, a man whose kindness would crack open her carefully constructed walls and make her do the unthinkable: lie about who she really was. What started as an escape would become the most dangerous gamble of her life, because when a CEO falls for the man cleaning her office, the truth doesn't just hurt, it destroys everything. By the time Marcus discovered her deception in the most humiliating way possible, Eleanor would learn that some towers are meant to fall, and some love stories require you to lose everything before you can find what truly matters. If you're watching this, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this story of love, lies, and redemption will leave you questioning what you'd risk for a second chance at happiness. The rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the boardroom like tiny fists demanding entry. Eleanor Vance pressed her fingertips against the polished mahogany table and tried to focus on the words being thrown at her like stones. "The merger is sound, Eleanor." Aunt Clarissa's voice cut through the room with surgical precision. 300 jobs is a small price to pay for market dominance. Ellie's chest tightened. The air in the room felt thin, like she was breathing through a straw. She watched her aunt's crimson lips move, watched Preston St. James lean back in his chair with that smug smile, watched the other board members nod like bobbleheads on a dashboard. 300 people, 300 families. "Sign the papers, darling," Preston said, sliding the folder toward her. His cologne was suffocating. Everything about him was suffocating. "Your father would have signed without hesitation." That was the problem. Her father would have. The room tilted slightly. Ellie's heart hammered against her ribs like it was trying to escape. Her palms went slick with sweat. The panic was rising, that old familiar monster crawling up her throat. "I need—" Her voice came out strangled. "I need air." "Eleanor, we're in the middle of—" "Meeting adjourned." Ellie stood so fast her chair scraped against the marble floor. "I'm not feeling well." She didn't wait for responses. She couldn't. Her heels clicked rapid-fire across the floor as she fled toward her private elevator. The walls seemed to close in. Her fingers fumbled with the button. Breathe. Just breathe. But she couldn't. Not here. Not in this glass tower that felt more like a cage with every passing day. The elevator doors opened. She stumbled inside, gasping. Her reflection in the mirrored walls looked like a stranger. Severe bun, charcoal suit, diamond earrings that cost more than most people made in a year. She looked like her father. She looked like everything she'd never wanted to become. The lobby felt no better. Too many eyes. Too many people who needed things from her. "Ms. Vance, your car is—" "Thank you, Martin." She pushed through the revolving doors into the rain. Her driver jumped out, umbrella ready. "Ms. Vance?" "Just drive. Circle the block. I need to think." The leather seats of the limo were butter soft and cold. Ellie rolled down the window despite the rain, letting the wet air hit her face. The city blurred past. Storefronts, streetlights, people hurrying with newspapers over their heads. The limo stopped at a red light, and that's when she heard it. Laughter. Not polite laughter. Not boardroom chuckles or networking giggles. Real laughter. Deep, genuine, joyful. The kind that came from somewhere true. Ellie turned her head. Through the rain, she saw a man in a gray uniform walking out from a service entrance. He was talking to a security guard, his whole face lit up with amusement. He threw his head back and laughed again, and the sound cut through the storm like a bell. Something in Ellie's chest loosened. The man adjusted his cap and started walking down the street, still grinning. He looked so free, so unburdened, like he carried something light inside him instead of the weight of the world. The light turned green. "Ms. Vance?" her driver asked. Ellie's hand was on the door handle before she realized what she was doing. "I'm getting out." "Ma'am?" "I'll walk. Thank you, James." She pushed the door open and stepped into the rain. "But Ms. Vance—" She waved him away and started walking. The rain soaked through her suit immediately, but she didn't care. She kept the man in the gray uniform in sight, staying about half a block behind. He turned a corner. She followed, and then she saw where he was going. Pop's Diner. The neon sign flickered in the rain. Half the letters were out, so it just read, "Pose Din R." The windows were steamed up, glowing warm and yellow. Through the glass, she could see people crowded at the counter, could hear the muffled sounds of conversation and laughter. The man in gray pushed through the door, and a wave of noise and warmth spilled out onto the street. Ellie hesitated. She'd never been in a place like this. Her meals came from five-star restaurants or her private chef. But something pulled her forward. Maybe it was the panic still fluttering in her chest. Maybe it was the cold emptiness of her penthouse waiting for her. Maybe it was that laugh. She pushed through the door. The smell hit her first. Coffee, bacon grease, toast, something frying. The air was thick with it, heavy and real. So different from the filtered, climate-controlled air of Vance Tower. Every stool at the counter was taken. People sat in booths, with chipped vinyl seats, hunched over plates of food that looked nothing like the carefully arranged dishes she was used to. A jukebox in the corner played something old and crackling. The man in gray, Marcus, she heard someone call him, took a seat at the counter. An older black woman with kind eyes poured him coffee without asking. "Usual, baby?" "You know it, Rita." Ellie slid into a booth in the back, hoping to go unnoticed. She was soaked, her hair falling out of its bun, mascara probably running. She must look insane. From her booth, she could see Marcus at the counter. He joked with Rita, then turned to help an older man, Pop, based on the apron, who was struggling with a stuck napkin dispenser. Marcus had it fixed in seconds, his hands quick and sure. "What'll it be, honey?" Rita appeared at her table, order pad ready. "Just coffee, please." "That's it, baby. You look like you need a whole meal." Ellie managed a smile. "Coffee's fine." She wrapped her hands around the mug when it came, letting the heat seep into her fingers. She watched Marcus laugh at something Pop said. Watched him check his phone and smile at whatever he saw. There was an easiness to him, a comfort in his own skin that she'd never felt in her life. She lost track of time. The coffee was bitter and perfect. The sounds of the diner, clinking plates, conversations, laughter, washed over her like a lullaby. Then Rita appeared with a check. Ellie's stomach dropped. Her purse. She'd left her purse in the limo. She had no wallet, no cash, no credit cards, nothing. Her face burned. "I'm so sorry, I left my—" Rita's smile faded. "You don't have money?" "No, I do, I left my purse in my car and—" She sounded like an idiot. She was Eleanor Vance, CEO of a billion-dollar company, and she couldn't pay for a cup of coffee. "It's okay, honey, but—" "Here." A deep voice, warm like honey. Marcus was standing by her table. He pulled a $5 bill from his pocket and laid it on the check. Bad days happen. Pass it on. Ellie looked up at him, stunned. Up close, she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, the small scar above his eyebrow, the genuine kindness in his expression. I can't. It's $5. He smiled. You'd do the same. Before she could respond, before she could thank him or explain or do anything, he tipped an imaginary hat and walked toward the door. Rita scooped up the bill with a knowing look. That's Marcus for you. Got a heart bigger than this whole city. Ellie watched through the window as he disappeared into the rain-soaked night. Something had shifted inside her. Something she couldn't name yet. She sat in that booth for another 10 minutes, staring at the water stains on the table, feeling more grounded than she had in months. The $5 bill sat on Ellie's marble vanity like an accusation. It was Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw that diner, heard that laugh, felt the weight of Marcus's simple kindness. Pass it on. When was the last time someone had been kind to her without wanting something? When was the last time someone had looked at her like she was just a person? Ellie picked up the bill, creased and worn. In her world, $5 meant nothing. She spent more than that on a single latte. But last night, it had meant everything. She dressed for work, but something was different. Instead of the severe black suit, she chose navy, softer, less harsh. She left her hair down, just pulled back with a clip. Small changes, baby steps toward feeling like a person instead of a corporation. Her driver was waiting downstairs. Good morning, Ms. Vance. Morning, James. At Vance Tower, she did something she never did. She waved off her security detail. Ms. Vance, protocol states. I'll be fine, Marcus. Just to the elevator. She walked through the lobby alone, past the marble pillars and the abstract art and the employees who averted their eyes. The elevator dinged and opened. She stepped inside and pushed the button for the executive floor. The doors started to close. Then the elevator groaned. The lights flickered. And everything stopped. Ellie's heart jumped. She'd been stuck in this elevator before. It was old, despite the building's modern facade. One of 100 things her father had never bothered to fix. Hello? She pushed the emergency button. Nothing. She pushed it again. Hello? From somewhere above, she heard metal scraping, voices. Hold on, we're getting you out. 5 minutes felt like 50. The walls seemed to close in. Then, with a screech of metal, the doors pried open about 2 feet. A man crouched in the gap, tool belt around his waist. Marcus. You okay in there, miss? Their eyes met. Recognition flickered across his face. Hey, you're the lady from the diner. Did the coffee help? Ellie's mind raced. He didn't know who she was. He saw the expensive suit, yes, but not the CEO badge she'd left in her purse. He thought she was just someone, anyone. A split-second decision, a fork in the road. Yes, thank you again for that. She ducked through the gap he'd made. I'm Elle. I work in admin. Admin, got it. He wiped his hands on his uniform. I'm Marcus, maintenance. Well, janitorial, technically, but I fix things when they break. He gestured at the elevator. Like this temperamental beast. It breaks down a lot. Every other week. They keep saying they'll replace it. He shrugged. Never happens. Ellie made a mental note. She'd have it replaced by Friday. Well, thank you for rescuing me, Marcus. All in a day's work. The elevator doors started closing again, and he jumped back. Careful with that one. The doors sealed shut between them, and Ellie stood in the lobby, her heart pounding for entirely different reasons than yesterday's panic attack. She'd just lied to him. Lied by omission, but still. She'd introduced herself as Elle from admin, not Eleanor Vance, CEO. She should correct it. Go back down, explain. But the elevator was gone, carrying Marcus back to whatever floor needed fixing, and Ellie was left standing there with a secret sitting heavy in her chest. By Thursday, the lie had taken root. Ellie found herself canceling a lunch with Preston. He'd droned on about golf and tax shelters, and she'd wanted to throw herself out the window. Instead, she changed her Louboutin heels for simple flats she kept in her office closet and went down to the lobby. Marcus was there, polishing the brass railings by the entrance. He worked with focus, his movements efficient and practiced. When he saw her, his whole face brightened. "Hey, Elle! Twice in 1 week. You're making this lobby look better already." She laughed. Actually laughed. "I came to pay you back, for the coffee." "Nah, don't worry about it." "Please, I insist." He studied her for a moment, then grinned. "Tell you what, you can buy me a chili dog at Pop's. We'll call it even." 20 minutes later, they were sitting at the same booth she'd occupied 2 nights ago. Marcus ordered for both of them, chili dogs with extra onions, fries, and 2 Cokes. Food she'd never eaten in her life. When the chili dog arrived, Ellie stared at it. "You've never had one?" Marcus asked, incredulous. "Is it that obvious?" "A little." He picked up his own. "Okay, lesson 1. Don't be afraid of the mess. That's part of the experience." She took a bite. Chili spilled onto her fingers. She laughed, grabbing napkins, and suddenly they were both laughing, and it felt like the most natural thing in the world. "So, Elle from admin," Marcus said, wiping his mouth. "What brings you to Vance Tower? You grow up wanting to file paperwork?" "Not exactly." She sipped her Coke, choosing her words carefully. "Family pressure. My father wanted me to work in corporate." "That's tough. I get it, though. Family stuff is complicated." "What about you?" His expression softened. "I'm doing this for my little sister, Jasmine. She's 19, in college. My mom passed 3 years ago, cancer. Mom didn't have good insurance, racked up a lot of medical bills. I took this job because it's steady, you know? Benefits, regular pay. Lets me cover Jasmine's tuition." Ellie's chest tightened. That's really admirable. It's what you do for family." He shrugged, but she could see the weight he carried. "Mom raised us to look out for each other. Jasmine's brilliant. She's studying engineering, going to do amazing things. I just need to get her across the finish line." "What would you do? If you could do anything?" His eyes lit up. "I'm a carpenter, or I want to be. I make furniture in my garage. Tables, chairs, shelves. I love working with wood. Creating something beautiful with your hands, you know? Why don't you do that full time?" "Maybe someday." His voice was wistful. "Right now, Jasmine needs stability. My dreams can wait." Ellie felt a stab of guilt so sharp it nearly took her breath away. She spent more on shoes in a month than Marcus probably made in a year. And here he was, putting his dreams on hold for love. They walked back to the tower together, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. Ellie felt lighter than she had in years. Then they reached the lobby entrance. "Thorne!" A sharp voice cut through the air. "What the hell are you doing loitering at the entrance? You've got bathrooms on floors 6 through 12 that need servicing?" Mr. Henderson, middle management. Ellie knew him from reports, mediocre performance, high employee complaints, but somehow still employed because he'd been friends with her father. Marcus's jaw tightened. "I'm on my lunch break, Mr. Henderson." "Your lunch break ended 10 minutes ago. Get moving before I write you up." Ellie's hands clenched into fists. Every cell in her body wanted to fire Henderson on the spot. She could do it with a phone call. 1 sentence, and he'd be gone. But Elle from admin wouldn't do that. Elle from admin would stand there and say nothing. Marcus glanced at her, and she saw the humiliation flicker across his face before he masked it. Yes, sir. He walked away without looking back. Henderson sneered and disappeared into the building. Ellie stood there, shaking with rage and guilt. By Friday morning, Ellie was exhausted. Managing a billion-dollar company was one thing. Managing a billion-dollar company while maintaining a secret identity was another entirely. She sat at her desk, reviewing employee payroll data. When Marcus Thorne's name came up, she nearly threw her laptop across the room. $32,000 a year. For a man who worked 60-hour weeks, who'd sacrificed his dreams for his family, who fixed elevators and polished brass, and probably did 100 things no one noticed. It was insulting. She pulled up the janitorial staff budget and drafted a proposal. Across-the-board raises, 15%. It was a drop in the bucket for Vance Industries. It was the right thing to do. She sent it to the board. 2 hours later, Aunt Clarissa was in her office. Absolutely not. It's a reasonable request, Ellie said, keeping her voice level. These employees are underpaid and overworked. It's $15,000 per employee annually, multiplied across the janitorial staff. That's money we can't spare. We just approved a $3 million renovation for the executive gym. That's different. That's for us. Ellie stood up. For people who already have enough. Clarissa's eyes narrowed. What's gotten into you, Eleanor? First you bolt from the board meeting, then you cancel on Preston, and now this? Are you having some kind of breakdown? I'm trying to run this company with integrity. Integrity doesn't pay dividends, darling. Clarissa smoothed her skirt. The answer is no. This discussion is over. After she left, Ellie sat in her chair and stared at the city below. 42 floors up, so high above everyone else. She'd never felt further from the ground. That afternoon, Ellie was walking through the admin wing, ostensibly to check on a project, but really hoping to run into Marcus, when she heard voices. You know someone named Elle? Works in admin? Her heart stopped. She peeked around the corner. Marcus was asking the question to one of the secretaries, Linda. Elle? Linda frowned. I don't think so. What department? Not sure. She's got dark hair, about this tall, really smart. Honey, I've worked here 15 years. I know everyone in admin. There's no Elle. Ellie's pulse raced. She grabbed a random file from a nearby desk and swooped in, nearly colliding with Marcus. Oh, sorry, she said, breathless. Marcus, hi. His face brightened immediately. Elle, I was just asking Linda about you. About me? Yeah, I wanted to grab lunch but didn't know how to reach you. He glanced at Linda, confused. Linda says she doesn't know you? Ellie's mind worked overtime. Oh, I'm new. Just started a couple weeks ago. Still learning everyone's names? Ah. Linda nodded, though her expression said she didn't quite buy it. Well, welcome aboard, Elle. Thank you. Ellie clutched the file to her chest like a shield. Marcus, I'm actually swamped right now. Rain check on lunch? Sure, no problem. He smiled, but there was a flicker of disappointment. Catch you later. When he left, Linda gave Ellie a long look. Ellie hurried away before questions could be asked. Back in her office, she leaned against the door and exhaled. This was getting complicated. Dangerous, even. The more people she interacted with while pretending to be someone else, the more threads there were to unravel. But when her phone buzzed with a text, from the burner phone she'd bought 2 days ago, the one she'd slipped her number into Marcus's hand on, all those concerns evaporated. Marcus. Hope your afternoon is better than mine. Henderson's on a rampage. She smiled and typed back. Elle. Hang in there. You got a tyrant boss? Marcus, you have no idea. Ellie almost laughed out loud at the irony. Friday evening, Ellie sat in a gilded ballroom next to Preston St. James, wearing a dress that cost more than most people's rent. Some charity gala for a cause she'd already forgotten. Around her, the city's elite air-kissed and made small talk and pretended to care about anything beyond their own portfolios. Preston was droning on about his latest acquisition. Ellie tuned him out. Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, the burner phone hidden in her clutch. Marcus. Photo attached. The picture showed Marcus and a young woman with the same warm eyes, both holding bowls of popcorn and grinning at the camera. His sister Jasmine had to be. Marcus. Movie night with the best sister in the world. Hope. Your evening isn't too boring? Ellie typed back quickly. L. Jealous? Mine's pretty dull. Eleanor, are you listening? Preston's hand was on her arm, possessive. Sorry, what? I was saying we should look at consolidating our holdings. A merger between St. James Capital and Vance Industries could be mutually beneficial. Translation. He wanted to marry into her company. I'll think about it, she said, slipping her phone away. Across the ballroom, Aunt Clarissa was watching her with those calculating eyes. Ellie suddenly felt trapped again, caged by expectations and obligation, and a life that had been chosen for her before she was born. She thought about Marcus and Jasmine eating popcorn, about Pop's Diner with its cracked vinyl booths, about $5 in chili dogs and laughter that came from somewhere real. She was the richest woman in the room. She'd never felt poorer. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear, the kind of day that made the city look almost innocent. Ellie stood in her walk-in closet, staring at rows of designer clothes like they belonged to someone else. She pulled out jeans. Actual jeans, not the designer kind with strategic distressing. A simple white t-shirt, a navy hoodie, sneakers. When she looked in the mirror, she almost didn't recognize herself. Good. Marcus had mentioned during one of their text conversations that he played chess in Central Park on Saturday mornings. There's this group of old guys who destroy me every week, but I keep coming back, he'd said. Ellie told herself she was just going for a walk, that it was coincidence if she happened to end up in the same park, that she wasn't actively seeking him out. The lies we tell ourselves, she thought. She took a taxi instead of her limo. The driver didn't recognize her, didn't treat her like royalty. It was refreshing and terrifying in equal measure. The park was alive with weekend energy, joggers, families, dogs chasing frisbees. She found the chess tables near the fountain, where old men sat hunched over boards, moving pieces with practiced precision. And there was Marcus. He sat across from a man who had to be 80, both of them deep in concentration. Marcus's brow was furrowed, his finger hovering over a knight. The old man grinned, clearly enjoying Marcus's struggle. Ellie hung back, watching. Then Marcus looked up, scanning the park, and his eyes landed on her. His whole face transformed. Elle! He waved her over. What are you doing here? Just walking. Needed some air. She approached the table, her heart hammering. How's the game going? I'm getting destroyed, as usual. Marcus gestured to his opponent. This is Mr. Chen. Mr. Chen, this is Elle. She works at the tower with me. Mr. Chen studied her with sharp eyes, then nodded. Your move, Marcus. Marcus made his play. Mr. Chen responded immediately, and Marcus groaned. That's checkmate in 3 moves, isn't it? 2, actually. Brutal. Marcus stood, shaking the old man's hand. Same time next week? Bring your A game next time, son. Marcus turned to Ellie, and suddenly they were alone in a crowd of thousands. Want to walk? They fell into step together, following the path around the pond. The sun filtered through the trees in golden shafts. A street musician played saxophone somewhere nearby, the notes floating on the breeze. "I didn't know you played chess," Ellie said. "My dad taught me before he left. It's one of the few good memories I have of him." Marcus's voice was casual, but she heard the old hurt underneath. "What about you? You play?" "A little." A massive understatement. She'd been city champion 3 years running in high school. "Want to give it a try?" They found an empty table. Marcus set up the pieces, and they played. Ellie deliberately made mistakes, let him win small victories, but Marcus was better than he gave himself credit for. He saw patterns, thought several moves ahead. "You're good at this," he said, capturing her bishop. "You're better than you think." They played for an hour, talking between moves. He told her about growing up in Brooklyn, about his mother's cooking, about the first table he'd ever built. She told him carefully edited versions of her own stories. Boarding school, true. Feeling disconnected from her family, very true. Wanting something more meaningful than paperwork, truer than he knew. Then, a black town car rolled past on the nearby street. Through the tinted windows, Ellie caught a glimpse of blonde hair. Preston. Ice flooded her veins. What was he doing here? This wasn't his neighborhood. Had Aunt Clarissa set him on her trail? "Elle, you okay?" Without thinking, Ellie dove behind a nearby tree. Marcus jumped up, alarmed. "What's wrong?" "That car, that man." Her mind raced. "It's my ex-boyfriend. He won't leave me alone." The lie came too easily. Marcus's entire demeanor shifted. His easy smile disappeared, replaced by something fierce and protective. He positioned himself between her and the street, his body language radiating warning. "Is he stalking you?" "Sort of. It's complicated." "Does he know where you live?" "No, I moved." Another lie, piling on top of the others. Marcus's jaw clenched. "Listen, if he's harassing you, you should file a police report. That's not okay." The town car had passed, disappearing into traffic. Ellie stepped out from behind the tree, feeling ridiculous and guilty, and strangely touched by Marcus's immediate protective response. "I'm handling it," she said softly. "You shouldn't have to handle it alone." He looked at her with such genuine concern that her chest ached. "Look, I know we haven't known each other long, but if you need someone, if he shows up and bothers you, you call me, okay? Day or night." "Marcus, I mean it, Elle." He took out his phone. "Give me your real number, not just texts. If that creep comes near you, I want to know about it." She gave him the burner phone number, and he immediately called it so she'd have his. When his name flashed on her screen, Marcus Thorne, with a little wrench emoji, something warm and dangerous bloomed in her chest. "Come on," he said, his hand gentle on her elbow. "Let me walk you to a cab. Make sure you get home safe." They walked to the park entrance, Marcus scanning the street like a bodyguard. When a taxi pulled up, he opened the door for her, then did something that made her breath catch. He touched her hand. Just for a second, his fingers brushing across her knuckles. "I won't let him bother you, Elle. I promise." Then the cab door closed, and she was watching him get smaller through the rear window, standing on the curb with his hands in his pockets, making sure she drove away safely. Ellie leaned back against the seat, her hand still tingling where he'd touched it. She was in so much trouble. Monday morning, the tower felt different. Or maybe Ellie felt different. She went through her morning meetings on autopilot, budget reviews, merger discussions, a conference call with investors. But her mind kept drifting to Saturday, to the chess game, to the way Marcus had stepped between her and perceived danger without hesitation. At 11:30, her assistant buzzed. "Ms. Vance, There's a maintenance worker here who insists on speaking with you. Ellie's pulse jumped. What's his name? Marcus Thorne. He says it's urgent. Her mind raced. Had he figured it out? Was he here to confront her? Send him away. Tell him the CEO doesn't meet with... She stopped herself, took a breath. Actually, I'll come down. She took the elevator to the lobby, her heart pounding. Marcus was waiting by the security desk, shifting his weight nervously. Elle. Relief flooded his face. I was hoping I'd find you. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He glanced around, then lowered his voice. There's a jazz concert Wednesday night, at the community center where my mom used to volunteer. It's not fancy or anything, but the music is incredible. I was wondering if maybe you'd want to go? With me? Oh. He was asking her on a date. Ellie's mind immediately went to her calendar. Wednesday night was the quarterly board dinner. Aunt Clarissa, Preston, all the senior board members. 3 hours of dry conversation and drier wine. She should say no, should end this before it went any further. Should come clean right now, in this lobby, and deal with the consequences. Instead, she looked at Marcus's hopeful face and heard herself say, I'd love to. His smile could have lit the entire building. Really? Really? Okay, great. He was almost bouncing. I'll text you the address. It starts at 7, but we should get there early for good seats. I'll be there. After he left, Ellie stood in the lobby, reality crashing down around her. She'd just agreed to skip the most important board dinner of the quarter to go to a jazz concert in a neighborhood she'd never been to with a man who didn't know who she really was. She was either falling in love or losing her mind. Possibly both. Wednesday arrived too fast and too slow all at once. Ellie spent the morning in meetings, the afternoon reviewing contracts, and every spare second having an internal argument with herself. At 4 o'clock, she told her assistant to cancel her attendance at the board dinner. Tell them I have a migraine, a bad one. Ms. Vance, they'll want to reschedule. No rescheduling. They can handle one dinner without me. Her assistant's eyes widened, but she nodded. Of course. At 5, Aunt Clarissa called. Ellie let it go to voicemail. At 5:30, she stood in her penthouse closet, staring at her options. Not the designer dresses. Not the clothes that screamed money. She pulled out a simple floral sundress she'd bought years ago and never worn. Soft cotton, modest neckline, just a dress. She swapped her diamond studs for simple silver hoops, minimal makeup, hair down and loose. When she looked in the mirror, she saw Eleanor. Not Ellie Vance, CEO, just Eleanor, a woman going on a date. Her phone buzzed, Aunt Clarissa again. Ellie's hand trembled as she declined the call. Then she turned off her main phone entirely and grabbed the burner. Her driver was waiting downstairs, as always. Where to, Miss Vance? She almost said the community center address, then stopped. Actually, James, I won't need you tonight. Ma'am? I'm taking the bus. His professional mask slipped for just a second. The bus? Yes. You can take the evening off. She walked 3 blocks to the bus stop, her heels clicking on the pavement. People pushed past her, no one giving her a second glance. At the stop, she stood next to a woman with 2 tired-looking kids and an old man reading a newspaper. The bus rumbled up, its brakes squealing. Ellie climbed on, fumbled with the fare machine, and found a seat near the back. Through the window, she watched her neighborhood give way to different streets, different buildings, a different world. The community center was in a part of the city she'd only ever driven through. The buildings were older here, more lived in. Murals covered brick walls. Small businesses crowded together. A barber shop, a bodega, a hair salon with bright lights. And there was Marcus, waiting outside the community center doors, wearing dark jeans and a button-down shirt that made his shoulders look even broader. When he saw her stepping off the bus, his face lit up like she'd given him a gift. "You came." "Of course I came." "You took the bus?" She laughed. "Is that so surprising?" "A little. I figured you for a cab girl." He offered his arm, and she took it, feeling the solid warmth of him through the fabric. "Come on. I want you to meet some people." Inside, the community center was alive with energy. People crowded around tables, greeting each other, like family. The smell of fried chicken and collard greens drifted from somewhere. A small stage was set up at one end, instruments waiting. Marcus introduced her to what felt like 50 people. Neighbors, friends, people who'd known his mother. They welcomed her warmly, with hugs and handshakes and genuine smiles that had nothing to do with who she was or what she could do for them. "This is Elle," Marcus kept saying, and each time, his voice carried a note of pride that made her heart squeeze. They found seats near the front, plastic chairs that had seen better days. The lights dimmed, and then the music started. It was jazz, but not the polished kind she'd heard at fundraiser galas. This was raw and real, full of improvisation and soul. The saxophonist bent notes until they cried. The piano player's fingers danced across keys like they were telling secrets. The upright bass thrummed through her chest. Marcus leaned close so she could hear him over the music. "What do you think?" "It's incredible." "Right? This is real music. No pretense, just feeling." She understood what he meant. In her world, even art was transactional, something to own, to display, to leverage. But this music demanded nothing. It just existed, pure and honest. Between songs, Marcus's hand found hers. Not grabbing, just resting there, giving her the choice. She laced her fingers through his. During the break, she noticed a young woman watching them from across the room. Same warm brown eyes as Marcus, same high cheekbones. Jasmine. She was studying Ellie with an expression that was part curious, part suspicious. "That's your sister," Ellie said. Marcus followed her gaze and waved. Jasmine came over, her walk confident despite her youth. "Jazz, this is Elle. Elle, my brilliant sister, Jasmine." "Nice to meet you." Jasmine's handshake was firm, her gaze assessing. "Marcus talks about you." "Good things, I hope." "He doesn't shut up about you, actually. It's annoying." But she smiled when she said it. Then her eyes dropped to Ellie's hands. "Those are pretty earrings." Ellie touched the silver hoops self-consciously. They were actually platinum, though she'd hoped they looked simple enough. "Thanks." "And your nails." Jasmine tilted her head. "That's a professional manicure, right? The cuticles are too perfect." Marcus laughed. "Jazz, you can't interrogate her." "I'm just making conversation." But Jasmine's expression said she was filing away information, building a picture that didn't quite add up. The music started again before anyone could probe further. But Ellie felt Jasmine's eyes on her throughout the second set, and a cold worry settled in her stomach. When the concert ended, people mingled and talked. Marcus pulled Ellie to the side, near a window where the streetlights cast everything in amber. "I had a really good time tonight," he said quietly. "Me too." "I was nervous asking you. Figured maybe jazz in a community center wasn't your scene." "It's more my scene than you'd think." He smiled, then his expression turned serious. "Can I be honest about something?" Her heart stuttered. "Of course." "I wasn't sure I should ask you out. I'm just the janitor, you know? I figured someone like you, smart, put together, beautiful, you'd want someone with more to offer." "Marcus, let me finish." He took a breath. "But then I thought, Maybe I'm selling myself short. Maybe I do have something to offer. Maybe not money or a fancy job, but I can make you laugh. I can make you feel safe. I can. She grabbed the front of his shirt and kissed him. She didn't plan it, didn't think about it, just pulled him down and pressed her lips to his, and the whole world went quiet. He froze for a half second, surprised. Then his arms came around her, pulling her closer, and he kissed her back with a tenderness that made her want to cry. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus looked dazed. Wow. You are more of a man than anyone I know, Ellie whispered. Don't ever doubt that. He smiled, that beautiful, genuine smile, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Can I walk you to your bus? Please. Outside, a light drizzle had started. They walked slowly, neither wanting the night to end. At the bus stop, under the shelter, they stood close together. When can I see you again? Marcus asked. Tomorrow? He laughed. Okay, tomorrow. The bus pulled up, its brakes hissing. Ellie climbed the steps, then turned back. Marcus stood in the rain, hands in his pockets, looking at her like she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. As the bus pulled away, she watched him get smaller and smaller, until he was just a figure on a street corner, and she was just a girl who'd told too many lies to count. Thursday morning hit like a freight train. Ellie walked into her office to find Aunt Clarissa waiting, perched on the edge of the desk like a predator. Migraine? Clarissa's voice was ice. You missed the most important board dinner of the year because of a migraine? I wasn't feeling well. You were feeling well enough to turn off your phone for 5 hours. Ellie set her bag down carefully. I needed rest. You needed... Clarissa stood up, her eyes blazing. Eleanor, you are the CEO of a billion-dollar company. You don't get to need rest. You don't get to disappear. Do you have any idea what the board is saying? They're questioning your commitment. Preston is insulted. The shareholders will survive one missed dinner. This isn't like you. Something is going on. Clarissa stepped closer. Are you seeing someone? Ellie's blood went cold. That's none of your business. It is my business when it affects this company, when it affects our family's legacy. She paused. I've hired someone to keep an eye on things, just to make sure you're, well. You hired a private investigator? Ellie's voice rose. To spy on me? To protect you. To protect us. Clarissa smoothed her suit jacket. Get yourself together, Eleanor. Whatever is distracting you, end it. Now. She swept out of the office, leaving Ellie standing there, hands shaking with rage and fear. A private investigator. Someone watching her. How long before they connected Elle from admin to Eleanor Vance? Her phone buzzed, her work phone, now turned back on. A message from HR flagged her attention. A disciplinary report on Marcus Thorne for inappropriate behavior filed by Mr. Henderson. The infraction? A smudge on a window. One single smudge. Ellie pulled up the report, reading Henderson's petty, vindictive language. He was threatening Marcus's job over nothing. And she knew why. Henderson was Clarissa's creature, always had been. This was a message. Stay in line, or people get hurt. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She couldn't fire Henderson without raising questions, but she could do something. She flagged Henderson himself for an HR audit, attendance records, expense reports, employee complaints. Let him worry for a while. Then she saw another notification. An anonymous grant had been approved for Jasmine Thorne's engineering program. Full tuition, 4 years, all expenses paid. Ellie's heart stopped. She hadn't approved that. She'd wanted to, had dreamed about it. but knew it was too dangerous. She dug deeper into the records. The grant had been approved through a subsidiary of Vance Industries, routed through 3 different accounts to hide the source. Someone had done this. But who? Then she saw the approval signature. C. Vance. Clarissa. Her aunt had approved a grant for Marcus's sister. Why? As leverage? As proof that the family was generous? Clarissa never did anything without a reason. At 4 o'clock, Marcus found her in a service corridor near the loading dock. She'd texted him to meet her somewhere private. Elle, hey, I've been looking for you all. He stopped when he saw her face. What's wrong? Marcus, I need to tell you something. He stepped closer, concerned. Are you okay? Is it that X? Did he… No, it's… Her phone rang. The burner phone. She ignored it. It rang again. Just a second. She answered, her assistant's voice panicked. Ms. Vance, I'm so sorry to call this number, but there's an emergency. The fire alarm is going off on the 42nd floor and… I'll handle it. She hung up, looked at Marcus. I'm sorry, there's a situation. I have to… Go. It's okay. He smiled. Text me later? I will. She hurried away before he could see the tears in her eyes. She'd almost told him, almost confessed everything. But the moment had slipped away, and now she was running toward another crisis, another duty, another piece of the cage closing in. That evening, Marcus came home to find Jasmine sitting at their kitchen table, surrounded by paperwork, crying. Jazz? What happened? He dropped to his knees beside her chair. Did someone hurt you? No. She wiped her eyes, then looked at him with a mixture of joy and confusion. Marcus, I got a grant. A full ride grant. Everything's paid for. All 4 years. He stared at her. What? Look. She showed him the papers. It's from some foundation connected to Vance Industries. They said I was selected based on merit and financial need. Marcus, this is everything. This is Mom's dream. He pulled her into a hug, his own eyes stinging. Jazz, that's incredible. His voice cracked. Mom would be so proud of you. They held each other for a long moment. Then Jasmine pulled back, her expression troubled. I don't like it, though. Don't like what? You earned this. I know, but I don't like owing people, and I don't like charity. She echoed their mother's old saying. Stand on your own feet or don't stand at all. It's not charity, it's a merit grant. You're brilliant, Jazz. They saw that. Maybe. But she still looked uncertain. I just hope there are no strings attached. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Elle. Can't do dinner tonight? Rain check? Sorry. He stared at the message. That was the 3rd time this week she'd canceled at the last minute. And there was something in her eyes earlier. Something like fear or guilt or both. You okay? Jasmine asked. Yeah, just, there's this woman. The one from the office? Elle. Yeah. He set his phone down. I really like her, Jazz, but sometimes I feel like she's holding something back. Like there's a part of her I don't get to see. Jasmine studied him with those 2 wise eyes. Maybe she's got her reasons. What if her reasons are that she doesn't trust me? Or maybe she does trust you. Maybe she's just scared. He thought about that. About the way Elle had kissed him at the concert. About how she'd looked when she talked about feeling trapped in her life. About the vulnerability underneath all that intelligence and beauty. I think I'm falling for her, he admitted quietly. Jasmine smiled. I know, Marcus. I can see it. You light up when you talk about her. She paused. Just be careful, okay? Something about her feels off. Like she's playing a role. What do you mean? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Just trust your gut. But Marcus's gut said Elle was scared and alone and hurting, and that he wanted to be the person who made that better. His gut said she needed someone to show her she was worth more than whatever world she was trapped in. His gut said he was already in too deep to turn back now. Across the city, in a glass tower that touched the clouds, Eleanor Vance sat alone in her office, staring at her reflection in the darkened window. She'd built an empire, she had everything, and she'd never felt more empty in her life. Friday evening, the storm rolled in like judgment itself. Ellie stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse, watching lightning crack the sky into pieces. The weather. Service had called it a derecho, a powerful straight-line wind system that would pummel the city for hours. Already, rain lashed the glass so hard it sounded like gravel being thrown. The lights flickered once, twice. Then everything went dark. Ellie's breath caught in her throat. Emergency lighting kicked in after a few seconds, but it was dim, casting everything in eerie blue shadows. She fumbled for her phone, the burner, always the burner now, and tried to call building maintenance. No signal. The towers must be down. Thunder boomed so loud the windows rattled. Ellie backed away from the glass, her heart pounding too fast. She was 42 floors up, suspended in a metal box in the middle of a storm, and suddenly the space felt less like luxury and more like a coffin. She'd been terrified of storms since childhood. A tornado had touched down near her boarding school when she was 8, killing 2 students in a neighboring building. She could still remember huddling in, the basement, the sound of the wind like a freight train, the silence after, another flash of lightning. In the brief illumination, she saw her reflection in the window, a ghost in an expensive dress, alone in the dark. Her phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Storm's crazy, you okay?" Her fingers trembled as she typed back, "Power's out, I'm fine." 3 dots appeared immediately, then, "Come over, I have a gas stove and candles." Nobody should be alone in this. She should say no, should maintain the boundaries she'd already shattered, should do the sensible thing. Instead, she grabbed her keys. The building's emergency generator had kicked in for essential systems, so the elevator worked, though it groaned ominously. The parking garage was eerily quiet. Ellie climbed into her personal car, a modest Audi she kept for rare occasions when she wanted to drive herself, and pulled out into the storm. The streets were chaos, traffic lights were out, trees had fallen across intersections. She drove slowly, carefully, following the GPS to Marcus's address in a neighborhood she'd only seen from highways. His building was a modest duplex, lights glowing warm in the windows. Generator probably, or maybe just candles. She parked on the street and ran through the rain to his door. Her expensive coat immediately soaked through. She knocked. The door opened almost immediately. Marcus stood there in jeans and a t-shirt, backlit by golden candlelight, and his face transformed when he saw her. "Elle, God, you're soaked." He pulled her inside, already reaching for a towel. "Come here." The interior was small but warm, filled with mismatched furniture that somehow worked together. Candles covered every surface, casting dancing shadows. A pot simmered on the stove, filling the air with the smell of something rich and savory. "Jasmine's at a study group," Marcus said, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "They're riding out the storm at the campus library. Safer than here." Ellie's teeth were chattering, though whether from cold or fear or relief, she couldn't say. "I'm sorry to just show up." "Don't apologize. I'm glad you came." He guided her to the couch. "Sit. I'll make tea." She sat, pulling the blanket tighter, and looked around. The walls were covered with framed photos. Marcus and Jasmine as kids, a beautiful woman who must have been their mother. candid shots of family gatherings and holidays. Real life, captured and displayed with pride. On a bookshelf, she spotted something that made her breath catch. Chess pieces. But not just any chess pieces. Hand-carved wooden ones, each unique, each perfect. A king with a detailed crown. A knight's horse with flowing mane. A rook like a tiny castle tower. "You made these," she said when he returned with 2 mugs of tea. "Yeah, that was my first real project after Mom died. I needed something to do with my hands, something to—" He trailed off. "Something to make sense of things. They're beautiful. They're yours if you want them. A gift." "Marcus, I couldn't—" "Then they'll wait here until you can." He sat beside her, close but not touching, giving her space. "What's really going on, Elle? You've been pulling away all week." The lie came to her lips automatically, then stopped. She was so tired of lying. "Things at work are complicated," she said carefully. "My boss is demanding. There's a lot of pressure." "Is someone giving you a hard time? That tyrant boss you mentioned?" She almost laughed at the irony. "Something like that." Thunder rumbled, closer now. Ellie flinched, despite herself. Marcus's hand found hers. "Hey, it's just noise. Can't hurt you." "I know. Logically, I know. But when I was 8..." She told him about the tornado, about the students who died, about how she could still hear that sound in her nightmares sometimes. He listened without interrupting, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. When she finished, he said, "Thank you for telling me. I know that wasn't easy. I don't usually talk about it. You don't usually talk about a lot of things. It wasn't accusatory, just observational. Sometimes I feel like I only know half of you." Guilt twisted in her stomach. "Marcus, it's okay. Everyone has stuff they're not ready to share. I just want you to know that when you are ready, I'm here." He squeezed her hand. "Whatever it is, Elle, I'm here." She looked at him, this man who fixed broken things for a living, who'd put his dreams on hold for love, who'd shown her more genuine kindness in a few weeks than she'd received in years. And she wanted to tell him everything. Wanted to strip away all the lies and stand before him as she really was, and pray that somehow, impossibly, it would be enough. "I need to show you something," Marcus said, standing up. "Come on." He led her to a door off the kitchen that opened into the garage. Inside, lit by more candles and a battery-powered work light, was a workshop. And it was magic. Half-finished furniture covered every surface. A rocking chair that curved like a wave. A dining table with inlaid patterns that looked like stained glass. Shelves that seemed to grow organically from single pieces of wood. Each piece was art, crafted with care and skill that took Ellie's breath away. "This is what I do," Marcus said quietly, "when I'm not mopping floors or fixing elevators. This is who I am." "Marcus, these are incredible. Why aren't you selling them?" "Because that takes time and money I don't have. Marketing, a showroom, building a client base. Right now, I make a piece here and there, sell to friends and neighbors for what I can get." He ran his hand along the rocking chair's curve. "But someday, when Jasmine's through school, when I've saved enough to take the risk, someday I'll do this full time." Ellie's mind was already working. She knew gallery owners, wealthy collectors who'd pay thousands for pieces like these. She could make 3 calls and change his life. But that was Eleanor Vance's power, not Elle's. "You will," she said instead. "These are too beautiful to stay hidden." He smiled, then stepped closer. "That interview Monday, for head of maintenance? I think I might actually get it. Better pay, better hours. It would help." Monday, The interview she'd arranged. The interview that Aunt Clarissa had moved to the CEO's office as a trap. Monday, when everything would come crashing down. Marcus, about Monday. He kissed her, soft and slow, tasting like tea and rain. When he pulled back, his eyes were warm in the candlelight. I have big plans for us, Elle. Once I get this promotion, I can finally take you to a real restaurant. Maybe even somewhere fancy, where you have to dress up. He grinned. Show you off proper. Her heart was breaking. That sounds perfect. They went back to the living room. Marcus served the stew he'd made, thick and hearty, full of vegetables and tender beef. They ate by candlelight while the storm raged outside, and Ellie felt like she was in a dream. This small, warm space. This good man. This simple meal that tasted better than anything from her private chef. After dinner, they sat on the couch, and somehow she ended up with her head on his shoulder, his arm around her, the blanket covering them both. The candles burned low. The storm began to ease, and Ellie felt safe in a way she'd never felt in her glass tower. Elle? Marcus's voice was quiet. I'm falling for you. Just thought you should know. She couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She just pressed closer, felt his heartbeat steady and strong, and wished this moment could last forever. I know it's fast, he continued. I know we're still figuring things out. But I look at you, and I see someone real. Someone who's been hurt and is trying to heal. Someone who makes me want to be better. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Whatever's weighing on you, whatever you're scared of, we'll figure it out together, okay? Okay, she whispered, even as the lies piled higher and higher, a tower of cards waiting to collapse. They fell asleep like that, tangled together on the couch. And for a few hours, in the candlelit dark, Ellie let herself believe that maybe, somehow, this could work. She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the sound of Jasmine's voice. Well, this is interesting. Ellie jolted upright. Marcus stirred beside her, blinking awake. Jasmine stood in the doorway, eyebrows raised, still wearing her jacket from the night before. Jazz, hey. Marcus rubbed his face. When did you get home? Just now. The storm knocked out power across half the campus. She looked at Ellie. Hi, Elle. Hi. Ellie stood up quickly, suddenly aware of how this looked. I should go. You don't have to, Marcus started. I do. I have work things. She grabbed her now dry coat. Thank you for last night, for everything. She practically fled, Jasmine's knowing eyes following her out the door. In her car, Ellie sat for a moment with her forehead pressed against the steering wheel. She'd slept in Marcus's arms. Had let herself pretend for one night that she was just a normal woman falling for a normal man. But Monday was coming. Monday, when the careful house of cards would collapse. The weekend passed in a blur of anxiety and preparation. Ellie reviewed Marcus's file obsessively. His work record was impeccable. Dozens of commendations from other employees. Perfect attendance. Multiple instances of going above and beyond. She would promote him, give him the position he deserved. And then she would tell him the truth. After he had the security of the new job, the better pay, the stable future for Jasmine. Then maybe he could forgive her. It was a coward's plan. She knew that, but it was the only plan she had. Sunday night, she couldn't sleep. She texted Marcus. Good luck tomorrow. You're going to do great. His response came immediately. Thanks, Elle. Wish me luck. This could change everything. You don't need luck. You deserve this. She stared at that message for a long time, then added, no matter what happens tomorrow, please remember that. There was a pause. Then, You okay? You sound weird. Just tired. Sleep well. She didn't sleep at all. Monday morning, 8:01 a.m. Ellie sat at her massive mahogany desk, reviewing Marcus's file one more time. HR had scheduled the interview for 10:00, and she'd arranged it all carefully. She would conduct it herself, offer him the position, and then, before the shock wore off, tell him who she really was. Apologize. Beg for understanding. It was a terrible plan, but it was all she had. At 9:45, her phone buzzed. Aunt Clarissa. Coming to observe the interview. Professional development. Ice flooded Ellie's veins. She typed back. That's not necessary. I insist. See you at 10. No. No, this was wrong. Clarissa was up to something. Ellie called HR. The interview with Marcus Thorne. Where is it being conducted? The CEO's office, Ms. Vance, as you requested. I didn't request that. It should be in HR. I have an email here from Ms. Clarissa Vance changing the location. I assumed it was approved. Ellie's hands went numb. When was this changed? Friday afternoon. Friday, before the storm, before Marcus had held her and promised they'd figure things out together. Clarissa had set this trap days ago. At 9:55, Ellie heard voices outside her office, Aunt Clarissa's sharp tones. Another voice responding, male, nervous. Marcus. The door opened. Aunt Clarissa swept in, all elegant cruelty and false smiles. Eleanor, darling, Mr. Thorne is here for his interview. She gestured, and Marcus stepped into the office. Time seemed to slow down. Marcus was wearing his best clothes, khakis and a button-down shirt, his shoes polished to a shine. He held his resume in one hand, his other hand clutching a portfolio that probably contained his carpentry work. His face was nervous but hopeful. He looked up at the woman behind the desk. Their eyes met. Ellie watched his expression change. Confusion first, like he was seeing someone who looked like Elle but couldn't be Elle. Then recognition, slow and terrible as the pieces clicked into place. The expensive office, the position of power, the nameplate on the desk that read, Eleanor Vance, CEO. His face went blank. The resume slipped from his fingers and fluttered to the floor. Elle? His voice was barely a whisper. Ellie stood up so fast her chair rolled backward. Marcus, I can explain. You're Vance? He looked around the office, at the expensive art, and the view of the city and the life she'd hidden from him. This whole time? You're the CEO? Marcus, please. Aunt Clarissa was watching with barely concealed satisfaction. Mr. Thorne, if you'd like to reschedule when you're feeling more composed. No. Marcus's jaw clenched. His eyes found Ellie's again, and what she saw there made her want to die. Hurt, betrayal, devastation. Was this a joke to you? No, God, no, Marcus. Did you? His voice cracked. Was I some kind of project? Rich girl slumming it with the janitor? See how the poor people live? It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Eleanor? He spat her name like a curse. You lied about who you were. You lied about where you worked. You let me tell you about my life, my struggles, my dreams, while you sat on a throne 42 floors above me. He laughed, but it was a broken sound. I told you I was falling for you. God, I'm such an idiot. You're not an idiot. I'm the idiot. I should have told you. When? He stepped closer, and she could see tears gathering in his eyes. When should you have told me? When we had lunch? When we played chess? When I kissed you? His voice dropped to a whisper. When I held you through the storm and promised we'd figure things out together? Ellie's own tears were falling now. I was going to tell you today, after the interview. I wanted you to have the promotion first, to have security. I don't want your promotion. The shout echoed through the office. I don't want your charity, or your pity, or your guilt. I wanted. He stopped, his shoulders sagging. I thought you were real. I thought what we had was real. It was real. Marcus, my feelings for you are the most real thing in my life. Don't. He held up a hand. Just don't. I can't. I need to go. He turned toward the door. Marcus, please. Ellie started around the desk. He spun back, his face hard. Don't touch me. Don't call me. Don't. Just stay away from me, Eleanor. You and your whole world. Just stay away. Then he was gone, the door clicking shut with terrible finality. Ellie stood there shaking, tears streaming down her face. Aunt Clarissa's voice cut through the silence like a knife. Well, that went about as expected. Ellie turned to her aunt slowly. Get out. Eleanor? Get out! She screamed it, months of bottled rage finally exploding. Get out of my office! Get out of my company! You're fired, Clarissa! Effective immediately! Clarissa's eyes widened. You can't fire me! I'm family! I'm on the board! And I'm the majority shareholder. I can fire whoever I want. Ellie's voice was cold, dead. You have until end of business today to clean out your office. Security will escort you out. For the first time in Ellie's life, she saw fear flicker across her aunt's face. Then Clarissa drew herself up, dignity wrapped around her like armor. You'll regret this, Eleanor. Mark my words. I already have more regrets than you could imagine. One more won't make a difference. After Clarissa left, Ellie collapsed into her chair. The city stretched out below her, gleaming in the morning sun. 42 floors up, so high above everyone else. She'd never felt so low in her entire life. Tuesday morning came wrapped in gray clouds that matched Ellie's soul. She'd spent Monday afternoon in her office, ignoring calls and meetings, staring at nothing. At some point, her assistant had quietly left a cup of tea on her desk. It had gone cold, untouched. Now, sitting in that same chair as weak sunlight filtered through the windows, Ellie felt hollowed out, empty, like someone had reached inside and scooped out everything vital. Her desk phone buzzed. She ignored it. It buzzed again. What? Her voice was hoarse. Ms. Vance, I'm sorry to disturb you, but HR needs to inform you that Marcus Thorne submitted his resignation last night, effective immediately. The words hit like a physical blow. What? He emailed his resignation at 11:47 p.m. He won't be returning to collect his final paycheck. He's asked that we mail it. No, he can't just... Ellie stood up, her chair scraping. Call him. Tell him we need to discuss... We tried, ma'am. His number has been... disconnected. Of course it had. He'd probably thrown away the phone the moment he got home. Erased her from his life as completely as she'd deserved. Thank you, Ellie managed. That's all. She hung up and immediately tried calling his number herself. Straight to a recording. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. She'd lost him. Completely, irrevocably lost him. Without thinking, she grabbed her keys and left. Ignored her assistant's concerned questions. Took the elevator down and got in her car. Drove through morning traffic to Marcus's neighborhood, her heart pounding with desperate hope. Maybe if she could just see him, just explain face to face. Maybe... She parked across from the duplex. The morning was quiet. A few kids waiting for the school bus. A woman walking her dog. Normal life continuing while Ellie's fell apart. She knocked on the door, waited, knocked again. The door opened, but it wasn't Marcus. Jasmine stood there in sweatpants and a college hoodie, her expression cold. He's not here. Jasmine, please, I need to talk to him. He doesn't want to talk to you. Jasmine's voice was hard, protective. He's humiliated, Ms. Vance. He thinks he was your pet project, your little social experiment. That's not true. I care about him. Do you? Jasmine crossed her arms. Because from where I'm standing, you treated him like he couldn't handle the truth. Like he was too simple or too poor to understand your complicated rich girl problems. She shook her head. Marcus is the best man I know. He deserved honesty. He deserved respect. You gave him lies. Each word landed like a stone. You're right. You're absolutely right. I was wrong, and I'm so sorry. Please, just let me apologize to him. He doesn't want your apology. Jasmine disappeared for a moment, then returned with a cardboard box. He asked me to give you this if you showed up. Inside the box was the white king from Marcus's hand-carved chess set, the one he'd offered her as a gift. And beneath it, a check. The anonymous grant money for Jasmine's tuition. He figured out the grant was from you, Jasmine said. Took him about 5 minutes of research. He's refusing to keep money that came from lies. But that money is for you, for your education. You earned it. On merit? Or because your boyfriend needed rescuing? Jasmine's eyes flashed. My brother put his dreams on hold so I could have mine. The least I can do is honor his principles. We don't want your charity, Ms. Vance. The door closed. Ellie stood there holding the box, staring at the carved wooden king. Its tiny crown was detailed with such care, such love. She'd never even gotten to tell Marcus how much his work meant to her. She drove back to the tower in a daze, went through the motions of meetings and decisions, signed papers, approved budgets, did all the things a CEO was supposed to do while feeling like a ghost haunting her own life. The week dragged by in shades of gray. Ellie threw herself into work with mechanical efficiency. She fired Mr. Henderson, approved raises for the entire janitorial staff, ordered the replacement of the temperamental elevator, made all the changes she should have made months ago, years ago. None of it filled the hole inside her. She stopped going home most nights. Her penthouse felt like a mausoleum, cold and empty and full of ghosts. Instead, she slept on the couch in her office, wrapped in the same blanket Marcus had given her that night during the storm. Friday afternoon, she found herself standing outside Pop's diner. She didn't remember deciding to come here. Her feet had just carried her, like they were searching for something her heart had lost. The bell above the door chimed as she entered. The lunch rush was over. Just a few stragglers nursing coffee. Pop was behind the counter, wiping it down with practiced strokes. He looked up when she walked in. His expression didn't change, didn't warm. He just nodded toward a booth. Coffee? Please. She slid into the same booth where Marcus had bought her that first cup, where he'd slid $5 across the table and told her to pass it on. Pop brought the coffee, but didn't smile. Just set it down and went back to the counter. Ellie wrapped her hands around the mug. It was the same bitter, perfect brew she remembered, but it tasted like ashes now. After a few minutes, Pop came back. He slid into the booth across from her, his weathered face serious. You're the girl, he said. It wasn't a question. I'm the girl. Marcus came in here last Tuesday, sat right where you're sitting, didn't say a word for an hour, just stared at his coffee. Pop's eyes were sharp but not unkind. Then he told me everything. Who you really are, what you did. Ellie's throat tightened. I'm sorry. You sorry you lied, or sorry you got caught? The question hit like a slap. I'm sorry I hurt him. That's a start. Pop leaned back. But it's not enough. I know. I don't know how to fix this. Can't fix it. Not the way you're thinking. He paused, choosing his words carefully. See, you think the problem was the lie, but that's not it. The problem was why you lied. I lied because I was ashamed. Of him? No, of myself, of my life, of everything I'd become. The words tumbled out. When I met Marcus, he was so free, so real, and I wanted that. I wanted to be someone different, someone better. So you became L from admin? Yes. Pop nodded slowly. I get that. I do. But you know what you actually did? You decided Marcus couldn't handle the real you. You decided he was too simple, too poor, too limited to understand your world. He held up a hand when she tried to protest. Maybe you didn't think of it that way. Maybe you thought you were protecting him. But protection and condescension are twins, lady. They look the same from the outside. The truth of it settled over her like a weight. You're right. Marcus didn't leave because you're rich. He left because you didn't trust him enough to tell him the truth. You treated him like he was made of glass instead of steel? Pop stood up. That boy has survived things that would break most people. Poverty, racism, losing his mama, carrying his whole family on his back. And you thought he couldn't handle knowing you had money? Ellie's tears fell into her coffee. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Yeah, you were. Pop's voice softened slightly. But wrong can be fixed, if you're brave enough. How? He won't talk to me, won't see me. I don't blame him. Then stop trying to talk. Start trying to show. He turned to go back behind the counter, then paused. Marcus told me once that actions are truth. Words are just promises we might not keep. If you want him to believe you're sorry, don't tell him. Show him. On the diner's small TV mounted in the corner, the news was playing. Ellie glanced up absently, then froze. Massive water main break at the Fletcher Community Center has caused extensive flooding in the building's foundation. City crews are overwhelmed with storm damage across the metropolitan area and estimate it could be days before. Fletcher Community Center, where Marcus's mother had volunteered, where they'd gone for the jazz concert, where Marcus had held her close and whispered that she had too much soul for the corporate world. Ellie was out of the booth and running before she made a conscious decision. The community center was chaos. Water gushed from somewhere underground, pooling in the street, seeping into the building's foundation. A small crowd had gathered, neighbors, volunteers, people who loved this place. And in the middle of it all, directing traffic like a general, was Marcus. He'd stripped down to a t-shirt despite the cold, his arms muddy to the elbows. He was shouting instructions to a group of men trying to shore up a buckling wall with plywood and 2x4s. The load-bearing beam is compromised. We need to support it before the whole structure shifts. City crews are 2 hours out minimum, someone yelled back. Then we do it ourselves. Marcus grabbed a sledgehammer and waded into the flooded basement entrance. This place meant everything to my mother. I'm not letting it fall. Ellie's heart clenched. She could see the desperation in every line of his body. This wasn't just a building to him. It was memory, legacy, love made physical. A black town car pulled up to the curb. For a split second, Ellie thought maybe Marcus had called for help, for funding. But no one got out. The driver just watched, waiting to see if the CEO would write a check. That's what Marcus expected. That's what everyone expected from Eleanor Vance. Money, the solution she could buy. But Pop's words echoed in her mind. Stop trying to talk. Start trying to show. Ellie yanked open the town car's trunk. Inside was an emergency kit, because of course there was. Her driver was always prepared. She grabbed the toolbox, the heavy-duty flashlight, the first aid kit. Then she looked down at herself. Designer blouse, pencil skirt, heels that cost a month of Marcus's salary. She kicked off the heels, reached into the back seat and found the winter emergency supplies, including work boots, because her driver had insisted on being prepared for anything. They were too big, but they'd work. Ms. Vance? the driver asked, confused. Stay here. If I don't come back in an hour, call for help. She walked toward the community center in work boots and a designer skirt, carrying a toolbox, looking absolutely ridiculous. Marcus saw her coming. His face went hard. Go home, Eleanor. No. I don't want your money. I don't want your pity. I don't want... Good, because I'm not offering any of that. She set the toolbox down. Where do you need help? I don't need your help. The building does. She looked past him at the flooded basement, at the wall that was clearly buckling. Her grandfather had taught her structural engineering, insisted she understand how buildings worked from the ground up. She could see what Marcus couldn't from his angle. That brace won't hold. The water pressure is too much on the east side. You need a hydraulic jack on the support column or the whole thing shifts. Marcus stared at her. How do you... My grandfather. He built half this city, made me learn it all from the foundation up. She started rolling up her sleeves. Now, are we doing this or not? Because you're wasting time. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then one of the other volunteers, an older man with kind eyes, spoke up. Son, if the lady knows buildings, we could use her. Pride's fine, but this center's more important. Marcus's jaw worked. Then finally, fine, but stay out of my way. Wouldn't dream of it. They waded into the flooded basement together. The water was cold and filthy, rising past their knees. The foundation wall was buckling inward, held by temporary braces that wouldn't last another hour. Ellie assessed the situation with professional eyes. The main support column here, see how it's shifting? That's where the pressure is concentrating. We need to stabilize it before we can shore up the wall. The hydraulic jack won't fit in that space, Marcus said. Not if we go straight in, but if we angle it from the north corner and use a 2x8 as a lever arm. She was already moving, years of theoretical knowledge suddenly becoming practical action. Marcus hesitated for only a second. Then he was moving too, grabbing the jack, understanding her plan without her having to explain it twice. They worked in tandem, Ellie directing, Marcus executing. Other volunteers passing them tools and materials. The water kept rising, but slowly, so slowly, they began to stabilize the structure. Now! Ellie shouted. Pump the jack! Marcus pumped. The column groaned, then shifted back into position. The wall stopped buckling. Hold it there! Get those braces in place! 3 men scrambled to secure the temporary supports. The wall held. Then, like a miracle, the water flow decreased. Someone had found the main shutoff valve. The flooding stopped. They stood there in the muck, breathing hard, covered in mud and who knew what else. Around them, the volunteers were cheering. The building had held. Marcus looked at Ellie. Really looked at her. She knew what he saw. Designer clothes ruined, hair plastered to her head, mud on her face, the expensive manicure Jasmine had noticed destroyed by work and filth. You know how to use a wrench, he said quietly. I know how to use a lot of things. I just forgot for a while. They climbed out of the basement together. Someone handed them towels. The afternoon sun broke through the clouds, making everything sparkle with that after-rain clarity. Marcus wiped mud from his face. Why did you come? Because Pop told me that actions are truth, and because... She took a deep breath. Because I don't want to be the person in the tower anymore. I want to be the person in the muck, doing the work that matters. That's easy to say now. You're right. Words are just promises. She looked at the community center, at the building they'd saved together. So, let me show you instead. However long it takes. Let me show you I meant everything I said, even if I said it wrong. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, I can't just forgive you, Eleanor, whatever your name is. Eleanor. But my grandfather called me Ellie. Only him and… She swallowed. Only him. I can't just forgive you, Ellie. You broke something. It's going to take time to fix. I know. And I can't promise it will be fixed. Maybe it's too broken. I know that too. He studied her. This woman in destroyed designer clothes and 2 big work boots, covered in mud and trying so hard to be brave. But I'm willing to let you try, he said finally. Hope bloomed in her chest, fragile and terrifying. Yeah? Yeah. A ghost of his old smile. Start by buying me a chili dog. You know, pass it on. She laughed, actually laughed, and it felt like breathing for the first time in a week. I think I can manage that. 3 months later, on a sunny Saturday morning, Ellie stood in front of Pop's diner and smiled. The changes had been gradual, small steps, not grand gestures. She'd started volunteering at the community center every Saturday, helping with repairs and teaching a basic business class for the youth program. She'd sold her penthouse and moved to a smaller apartment. Still nice, but normal-sized, in a neighborhood where people actually knew their neighbors. She still ran Vance Industries, but differently now. The company had a new ethics board, fair wages across all positions, community partnerships instead of hostile takeovers. It would take years to undo all the damage her father had done, but she was trying. And Marcus. They'd taken it slow. Coffee at Pop's once a week at first, then twice, then dinners, then long walks where they talked about everything. Her childhood loneliness, his fear that he'd never be enough, the way they'd both been trapped by different kinds of cages. They'd had hard conversations. He'd told her exactly how much she'd hurt him. She'd listened without defending herself, without making excuses. Just listened and learned, and slowly, carefully, tried to do better. There had been setbacks. Moments when old patterns emerged, when she caught herself trying to solve problems with money instead of presence. Times when Marcus pulled back, protecting himself from potential hurt. But they kept showing up, kept trying, and somewhere along the way, the trying had become something real again. Marcus had launched his carpentry business 2 months ago. Not with her money. He'd been adamant about that. But she'd connected him with a small business development program, helped him write a business plan, stood beside him while he pitched to investors who saw his talent and his drive. His first commission had been a dining table for a young couple. His second had been a custom bookshelf for a boutique law firm. Word was spreading. He was building something beautiful, piece by piece. The door to Pop's diner opened, and Marcus emerged, grinning. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt, sawdust still caught in his hair from a morning of work. He'd never looked more handsome. Ready? He asked. Ready. They walked into the diner together, no longer hiding, no longer pretending. The lunch crowd was in full swing. Families, workers on break, old friends catching up. Pop saw them come in and jerked his head toward their usual booth. It wasn't the same booth where this had all started. That one was occupied by a young couple sharing a milkshake. But this booth was theirs now, worn and comfortable and full of new memories. Marcus slid in across from her, and his foot found hers under the table. Such a simple thing, but it meant everything. How's the commission going? Ellie asked. Good, great actually. The client wants 2 more pieces for their lake house. His eyes lit up the way they always did when he talked about his work. I'm thinking about hiring someone, part-time at first, but still, an actual employee. Marcus, that's amazing! Don't get too excited. It's just one person, and I might drive them crazy with my perfectionism. They'll be lucky to work with you. He smiled, then his expression turned serious. Jazz got her midterm grades back, all A's. She's at the top of her engineering class. Of course she is. She's brilliant. She asked about you. Wanted to know if you'd come to dinner next week. Family dinner. He paused. She's ready to let you in, finally. Ellie's eyes stung. Jasmine's forgiveness had been harder to earn than Marcus's. But slowly, through showing up and being honest and never asking for more than she'd earned, she'd started to build a bridge there too. I'd love that. Rita came by with coffee. Real coffee, bitter and perfect, and took their order. 2 chili dogs, extra onions, fries to share. The same order they'd had that first lunch, back when everything was lies and hope and desperate longing. But this time, there were no lies. I got a call from the mayor's office yesterday, Ellie said. They want to talk about public-private partnerships for affordable housing. You going to do it? I think so, if it's done right. Real affordable housing, not just luxury apartments with a few affordable units tacked on. She stirred sugar into her coffee. It's going to be a long fight. The board isn't happy. Some shareholders are threatening to leave. Sounds hard. It is, but it's the right kind of hard. The kind that matters. She looked at him over the rim of her mug. A wise man once told me that standing on your own feet is what matters, even when it's uncomfortable. That wise man sounds incredibly handsome. Moderately attractive at best. He laughed, and the sound still did something to her heart, still made her feel anchored and free at the same time. Their food arrived. They ate and talked and laughed, and it was ordinary and perfect. Just 2 people sharing a meal, building a life one day at a time. When the check came, Ellie reached for it. Marcus raised an eyebrow. I've got it, she said. You paid last time? Then consider it passing it on. He smiled at that, the reference to where they'd started, how far they'd come. Okay, but next time is mine. Deal. Outside, the afternoon sun was warm on their faces. They walked hand in hand down the street, past the community center, fully repaired now, past the bodega, where the owner called out greetings, past the park, where they'd played chess. Where to? Marcus asked. Anywhere, everywhere. I don't care. He stopped walking and pulled her close. Right there on the sidewalk, with people flowing around them, he kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise. I love you, he said when they broke apart. Just in case you were wondering. I love you too. She touched his face, this good man who'd taught her what it meant to be brave. Thank you for giving me a second chance. Thank you for being worth it. They started walking again, no destination in mind, just moving forward together. Ellie had spent her whole life in towers, high above the world, alone with her money and her power and her crushing loneliness. Now her feet were on the ground. She was just one person among millions, walking next to someone who saw her, really saw her, and loved her anyway. She wasn't the richest woman in the city anymore. She'd given up the penthouse, the excess, the isolation that came with extreme wealth. She still had more than most, and she was learning to use it wisely, to lift others up instead of building higher walls. But more than that, more than the money or the company or the legacy she was trying to rebuild, she had this. Love. Real love. The kind that survived truth and time and all the messy work of being human together. They passed Pop's diner again, coming full circle. Through the window, she could see that young couple still sharing their milkshake, looking at each other like they were the only 2 people in the world. She knew that feeling now. Had earned it, fought for it, learned to cherish it. Inside the diner, Pop caught her eye through the window. He raised his coffee mug in a small salute. Ellie smiled and waved back. Then she turned to Marcus, to this man who'd saved her by refusing to let her hide. and said the truest thing she'd ever known. "Let's go home." And hand in hand, they did.